Today we're going to be installing the Dirt Performance full skid plate system for the 2010 Polaris RZR 4. If there's any questions you have after watching the video, please visit dirtperformance.net or give us a call at 423-569-DIRT. I want to insert the backing plates inside the frame with the tabs pointing front to rear, and the insert alongside of it pointing up towards the top of the bike. Then line up the two front holes of the skid plate with the backing plates and insert the 1/4 20 hex head washers into the holes through into the backing plates and thumb them in. Just leave them loose enough that give you room to position the back for the other two fasteners. Once it's positioned, go ahead and tighten the two front fasteners down. Take the 1/4 14 Tech screws with impact driver, drive them into the rear of the frame just to each side of the receiver hitch. And once you get these two fasteners tight, the installation of the rear skid plate is complete. Next, we want to install the rear belly skid. Line up the 3 large holes at the front square edge of the skid plate with the 3 holes in the first cross member. The 5 holes across the back should be able to thumb your screws in, and once you get those 5 in there, you can go ahead and snug them down with the impact wrench. I want to be sure and put Loctite on each of these 5 fasteners before installing them into the frame to ensure that they don't back out. Next panel is the smaller of the 2 remaining rectangle skids. I'm going to line the 3 larger holes of the skid plate towards the front with the 3 holes in the frame cross member and the 3 dimpled holes. They need to line up with the front edge of the previous skid plate. And be sure to put Loctite on these 3 fasteners. Just a note, did notice that the threads in the frame sometimes were a little hard to get the bolts started, so you want to make sure that they are threaded in straight as to not strip your threads out in the frame. Once you got all 3 of them lined up, go ahead and tighten them down. Next panel is the larger rectangle skid plate. There's 6 fasteners in this. Line those 3 large holes up with the first cross member back from the front. 3 dimpled holes of the back side of the skid plate should line up with the previous skid plate. Again, just thumb all these bolts in, get them all started, make sure they're not cross threaded, and once you get those done, then you can go ahead and tighten it on down. Next, we're going to move to the side skids before we continue with the belly installation. There is 8 brackets furnished with the side skids that are angle shape with 2 small holes, 1 large round hole, and 1 oval hole. The round and the oval hole are made for mounting the bracket to the frame. The 2 smaller holes are for mounting the skid plate to the bracket. You also want to apply Loctite to the M8 fasteners to ensure they don't back out. Using the impact driver, line up your large round hole with the outer hole in the frame and leave it just a little bit loose so that you can get the second fastener in position. Once you get it started, just go ahead and tighten it down. Go ahead and install all 4 brackets on each side. Secondly, there's 2 longer brackets that be mounted to the side plastics, so you need to back out with a T30 Torx bits, you need to back out the bolts of the plastic. And these two brackets here, there's two longer ones and two shorter ones. The longer one goes to the rear and the shorter one to the front, with the 3-bolt pattern pointing towards the outside of the vehicle. This will later be fastened to with the skid plate. Once you get them both lined up good, go ahead and tighten them back up. And then find the skid plate, the side skid plate, with a bracket protruding out from the end, and this would be the rear skid plate for the side. So we'll line up the 2 inner holes with the 2 smaller holes in the brackets we installed previously, and insert the 1/4 20 thread rolling screws. It's a good idea to leave these just a little bit loose until you get all the fasteners inserted. Makes it a little easier to find the holes. Once you've inserted all 7 screws, go ahead and tighten them down. Next, get the other skid plate. It has a offset protrusion towards the front. Also, we have 7 fasteners in this skid plate. And again, just line up 2 inner holes, start all of your screws, get them started, and once you get all 7 screws in, go ahead and snug it down. There is 2 remaining fasteners on this skid plate, which ties it to the rear skid plate. They drive in from the rear, one and then one from the top. These bolts will be threaded into the protruding bracket from the rear skid plate. Here we're just repeating the steps from the other side, inserting the brackets, the 4 brackets on each cross member. Again, there's a different quantity of cross members on this side versus the passenger side. So there's only enough cross members for you to actually put the brackets on. Once the side skids are completely installed, we need to move on to the front belly skid. This belly skid has quite a bit of an offset. As long as you line up the dimples the same as all the other skid plates, you'll be fine. There's a total of 8 fasteners. Again, remind you to put Loctite on each of these fasteners before installing them. 3 screws along the rear of that skid plate to hold it in place, and then you can move up to the front and start the other 5 screws. And once you get all the fasteners thumbed in, just go ahead and tighten them down, and that skid plate is complete. We'll move on to the front differential skid plate. Front differential skid plate is somewhat of a challenging installation. There's a limited amount of room between the differential and the frame, so makes it a little tough to get the lock nut on the back side of the bolt. But you want to install the first 2 fasteners at the front, line them up with the 2 holes in the frame. Put the flat washer on the frame side, and then the lock nut jam up against the 2 flat washers. Once you get these snug down, we'll require a 1/4 inch drill bit and drill, and you'll have to transfer this hole into a little tab that's been installed there after the original design of the bike. The first hole on the outer part of the frame is there. It's just a little tab you'll have to drill through. It doesn't take much effort. And insert the 1/4 bolt, and again put a flat washer on the back side of the frame and lock nut, and tighten this bolt down, and the front differential skid plate is complete.